So this is a little bit of a Mortal Kombat Aftermath update because I'm aware some people probably haven't seen this. Some of you might not follow Stephanie aka 16-bit on Twitter. Some people asked her some questions and she replied, and it's kind of gotten me worried about the update for Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath in terms of the breakaways. Now when I watched the trailer originally and they showed off the breakaways and you being able to armor break, or sorry, not the trailer, the combat cast, I had a few concerns, and one of my concerns has been confirmed. Now before I say anything about this, I just want to say that, I don't go into these things pessimistically and I don't want to hate on Mortal Kombat. A lot of NRS's design choices are quite weird, and so after time you start to think to yourself, well, what are they going to do this time to mess it up? Now I had concerns about the breakaway system in the first place on the original reveal event. I had concerns when we watched the combat cast the other day, and I voiced a few of them in the video that I uploaded. However, there was a concern I didn't voice, and Stephanie has actually voiced it she's voiced it for us really, and it's kind of got me wondering why NRS do these things. Now for all of you out there that play fighting games, you know stuff like parries, breakers, focus attack, rage art, rage drive, whatever. Those are universal mechanics. Those are things that everyone can use. Can you imagine playing Thirst Strike and there being one character that just can't parry? Can you imagine playing Tekken and there's one character that doesn't have a rage art or a rage drive? Can you imagine playing Street Fighter 4 and there was a character that didn't have a focus attack? They're universal mechanics that every character can benefit from. Now in Mortal Kombat's case, they have variations. Every variation plays differently. Some play slightly differently, not massive differences, but every variation is different, and some people like to use more uncommon variations. Not every Noob Saibot wants to use Seeing Double. Not every Baraka wants to use Marauder. So every variation should have something that makes you want to play it, and I don't feel like any variation should be left out of a universal mechanic. So what is it I'm building up to here? A person called Buff Scorpion tweeted at Stephanie and said, so Kitana really gets it in version 1. Air version in V2 and V3 doesn't have it. Stephanie replied, the air version works too, so only version 3 doesn't have it. But yes, in some instances there will be characters who have a variation specific armor breaking move and would have to use that variation if they want. That is seriously alarming and honestly baffling. The breakaway mechanic is a universal mechanic. It's a mechanic that allows you to fall out of combos. This new addition with the armor breaks is something to counter that, because we all have issues with the breakaway mechanic. We don't like the fact that we land a hit and we could potentially be punished for it. So they've added a layer of mix up to it where that if I know you're going to break away, I can armor break you. But according to Stephanie, I can only do that in certain variations. There's a few reasons for why this is worrying. What if they give the armor break move to a variation like, for example, Noob Saibot's Pitch Black, which is widely considered to be one of the most stupid and pointless variations in the entire game. Shang Tsung, for example, has two variations that get used heavily, the one with the ninjas and the one with the ground sparks, but he also has another one that has a bunch of moves thrown together and none of them really complement each other. Imagine if that was the one that had the armor break. You suddenly don't have access to this universal mechanic. You see, it's things like this that I don't understand why NRS do it. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. Here, somebody else asks Stephanie, hey Stephanie, quick one for you. If Fujin Variation 2 loses wind kicks, what replaces it as armor breaker? Or does he not have one in that variation? And Stephanie replies, doesn't have one. Doesn't have one. Are you shitting me? This is meant to be a universal mechanic. I don't understand why NRS do these things. They're so weird. And yes, you're gonna have people saying, well, maybe they've buffed the other variations to the point where it doesn't need it. It doesn't make sense, people. This is a universal mechanic. Breakaways, as bad as they are, is a universal mechanic that every character has to interact with. And you're telling me that my variation, the variations that I use, potentially may not have it. This is why when we are shown stuff, we are so skeptical. This is why when NRS say they're implementing changes, people get worried. Now change is usually good in fighting games. Change is usually good. It brings something fresh to the game. But adding a universal system that only some variations benefit from is jarring to me. It's gonna go one of two ways. The characters that only have it in one or two variations and not three, it might be in two variations that nobody uses. And the flip side of that is that a character that already has a powerful variation will get the armor breaker, and so the other two variations become even weaker with less reason to play them. This just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this has me even more anxious for the balance changes that we're going to get for Aftermath. NRS do some weird things. They do some really weird things when it comes to balancing and implementing new things. things. I don't understand the logic here. This new mechanic could potentially reshape the entire meta of Mortal Kombat. It could reshape the entire meta of this game, and they're outright saying that only certain variations will benefit from this. It really doesn't make sense. Now, I'm willing to put a bet down that that is exactly what's going to happen. The meta is going to shift because of this mechanic. Certain variations will become too powerful or obsolete basically, and that's not what this game needed. People are already against variations as a general rule. I know there's people out there that like them, but most people I speak to don't really like variations. They would rather it was just one big complete moveset, but this could potentially make variations very lopsided. Now, I don't know what other changes they're bringing in. I have no idea. Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but given NRS's track record, I don't think so. I think this is a fair assessment, but what do you guys think? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think this is going to create issues for Mortal Kombat 11, more issues than it already has, or do you think everything's going to be fine? I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Let's discuss. Anyways guys, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. I appreciate all the new subscribers, all the views that we're getting. It's great, and I will catch you guys very soon. Peace.